So before we proceed with animating the arms for this walk cycle, I'm going to take this lesson to explain the arms movement. So in order to do that, I have created this simple animation of a pendulum. So now let's loop this animation. If you'd like to loop your animation in Animate, you click this icon and then set up to what point you want the animation to loop. So I'm gonna drag this all the way from beginning to end. So when I click enter, it's going to loop out. So this is the animation for a pendulum, and the arms would move in almost the same way. I'm gonna turn off the loop. And then let's take a look at the onion skin of this animation. So now let's drag the onion skin all the way to the end and all the way to the start. And I'm gonna create a new layer. And then let's try and map this out. So as you can see, this is the spacing of our pendulum. And also, as you can see, that the pendulum follows an arc. In the same way, the arms would also follow an arc. So here, the spacing, it slows down on the left side and on the right side and speeds up in the middle. So now let's try to replicate this animation. Let us create a new file. Let's set the frame rate to 24. Okay, this is the new file now. And now let's try to recreate the pendulum, because the arms works almost the same way. So instead of drawing a circle, let's just draw a straight line. So this would be, before we do anything, let's create our spacing guide so that it's easier to track. So it looks like this. This one would be the half of this frame and this frame. So the spacing of the pendulum looks like this. This is on the left side and this is on the right side. So now let's create our movement, arms movement. So now I'm creating this one. Hit F7. Let's turn on the onion skin and let's do the other side. Okay, perfect. This one is the last frame. And now let's create the passing point. So I'm using the halves method here so that it's easier to explain. So click F5 so we have space to create a blank new keyframe, then F7 to create a blank new keyframe. We're gonna draw the passing point. Now, as I've explained before, that one of the principle of animation is arc, or almost anything in, or most of anything that is organic follows the movement of an arc. So if we create an in-between like this is wrong. This one is wrong because the length seems like it's now smaller. So that we get this correctly, we should have the flow of an arc. So now this is the middle point right here. Now let's create this frame. So in order to do that, let's go back to frame 1, or to the first frame, and hit F5 to create space, and then F7. Go to this frame and F7 to insert a blank keyframe, and then draw the in-between. And now I'm gonna do this one next. So I'm gonna go back to frame 1, F5, then hit F7, That's good. Now let's proceed to do this one, which is the in between of our middle point and our last frame. Hit F5, go to the next frame, hit F7. I mean, our guide is already gone, so let's extend or hold our guide right there. So we already have finished this one. We're going to do this one next. So hit F5, then go to the next frame and F7. So we already finished the one side of our pendulum movement. Now we're going to do the other side. So let's copy the first frame. So we copy this one, and from here, F5, oh sorry, F5, then F7, then Command Shift V on a Mac, Control Shift V on a Windows to paste on place. Okay, now we're gonna do the same. Let's adjust our onion skin so we don't get confused. Hit F5, then F7, and let's create the middle point. So we're gonna do the same as what we did before, but only on the opposite direction. So this is now our movement. It looks good. Currently it's on ones. Let's convert this to on twos. So we're gonna hold each frame by 2. So go to each frame and then hit F5. So one drawing would consume 2 frames. And now let's also extend our guide. Okay, and let's click play. Okay, looking good. Now, we already have let's just think of this as our arm, or the guide for our arm. I mean, an arm has 3 parts. We have the upper arm, the lower arm, and the hand. So what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate this into 3. So click on the layer, right click, and then select duplicate layers. So now I have created a copy. So let's go to frame 1, and what we're going to do is we're going to move this. Click the drawing and then drag. Go to the next frame, click the drawing and then drag. Now do that for all of the frames. So we have finished the second part. Now we're gonna do the third part because an arms has 3 parts: the upper arm, the lower arm, and the hand. So we're gonna right click this layer and then duplicate, and then we're going to apply what we have done before. So click the drawing and then drag this all the way to the end point. Do that for all of the frames. So now we are done. Let's try it and preview this one. So one thing that you have to understand in an arm is that the center of, or where the origin of our energy here is on the shoulder part. It's here at the top. And the farther away the parts are to where the center of energy, or where the force is coming from, the more delay there is. So that's how the arms would move, because these are 3 parts. So the farther away you are, the more delayed that part is. So the lower arm would be a bit delayed compared to the upper arm, and the hand is more delayed than the lower arm. So what we're going to do is we're going to replicate that one by selecting the frames here in the lower arm. Just select this one, and then let's delay this by 2 frames. And now for the our guide for our hand, we're going to select this one and drag this and delay this by a total of 4 frames. Now let's see how this one would look. So as you can see, now we see a delay, and that's how it would move also in the arm. Now in order to correct this one, because at the start of the frame we have some missing frame, here there is no lower arm and the hand. So what we're going to do is, if you take a look at here, everything that goes over, we bring them back to the start. So we select this and then drag this to the start, and we select this two and drag this and drag this to the front. And now let's delete the excess frame. We select these and then right click and remove frames, and now let's take a look. Now it's in a loop. So let's try and preview this. Command enter on a Mac, control enter on a Windows. So now let us try and correct the placement of each part. So now it is done. Let us now try and preview this. So that's how it would look like. So now we could use this as a guide for trying out the arm's movement. Take note that this is not the part of your class project, but this is only an exercise to help you practice and get the feel of the arm's movement. So now, click the small rectangle right here so that it would convert into outline mode. And let's lock this one so that it can't be seen in the onion skin. So now, let's try and use this as a guide to create our arms. So for the design, let's try and do this kind of design. I mean, just a simple arm. This would be the shoulder, the elbow, and the wrist. And this would have a rectangle for the hands, just to keep things simple. So let's keep this on. Let's not replace this layer, so that we would have a guide on what it would look like. Create a new layer. And now let's try and fit this design to our guide right here. So this one would look like this. Our elbow, our shoulder, and then our wrist, and then our hand, which is a rectangle. Do the same. So one thing to note is that when you do the delay in the arms, you need to be careful, because if you look at this one, it's already too extreme, and it seems like the joints have or the bone is broken. So there's a limit to how the arm would delay, especially if it's the opposite or back part of the arms. So let's just continue this. So here, I'm not anymore going to follow the guide because it has broken the joints. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to straighten this, or just delete it by a bit, because this is my elbow, this is the back of the elbow, and if I proceed to do it like this, I mean, the hand would seem like it's broken. Same thing here. But we can still delay the hand, no problem. So now in the opposite direction, we can bend this as much as we'd like, because this is the direction where the elbows could bend. So now let's try and preview this. So now it looks like the arm's movement in a walk cycle. And although I did say that you should be careful with not breaking the arms too much, remember, this is animation and you can do anything you'd like. You could also exaggerate this. So if you'd like to break this, as long as that is your intention, and to make the animation more exaggerated, you could always do so. So for your exercise, I want you to replicate what I have done here today. First, create 3 lines. So you start with the first one, and then you duplicate it, and then create the 3 parts: the upper arm, the lower arm, and the hand. Once you have finished your guide, you delay each of the part, and then try and correct the position for each of the layer, and then create or practice the arms movement.